Hello, sisters in service, and welcome to episode 36. In this episode, we are going to be speaking on the effects of military sexual trauma in the military from 3 women who have experienced it firsthand. The first person you'll hear speaking is Tiffany Martschink. She's a U.S. Army veteran and host of the podcast Mettle of Honor. The second woman you'll hear speaking is Tiffany Martschink. Again, she is a U.S. Army veteran, and she's also the founder of the organization Women for H.E.R, which helps women 18 and over heal from trauma and abuse that they've encountered during their life. And last but never least is Jamie Miller, who is a North Carolina National Guard veteran who has suffered one in the same. Now, when I asked these women if they would do this, they so graciously accepted. And I explained to them that they could share as much or as little as they wanted. And they were very generous with their information. When I think about this happening on a base, even if it happens one time, to me, that's one time too many. And we speak on this and we talk and we have these roundtable discussions. But it's time for action to take place. And that's just my opinion. I hope that I won't say enjoy, that's probably the wrong word. I hope you get some benefit from this because I certainly learned a lot. Even though this never happened to me, I'm always in a capacity to learn. So if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to any of these women to ask them personally for any information or answer any questions that you might have. So in the meantime, thank you for listening. I hope you will follow me and leave a review or download this podcast. I truly appreciate you. Thanks.
I served in the Army on both active duty and in the reserves for 24 years. And when I was in the reserves towards the end of my career as an instructor, I experienced an MST. It was of somebody that I knew previously on active duty and I had previously had a relationship with. Unfortunately for me, and we can probably get into it later, but unfortunately for me, because I was not on Title 10 orders, nor was I on my weekend duty for the reserves, it's not tied to the military. So that's just a brief overview of mine.
Hi, so I had several instances of MST and I didn't realize it until recently. I knew of a few that I had acknowledged, but I didn't realize that it was multiple. One was a relationship I was in, a marriage. It was emotionally, mentally, and physically, sexually also. And then prior to that, there were other several instances. I served 10 years in the United States Army, and I never reported it. So I don't know. I didn't really know that that's what it was. I knew I felt uncomfortable, but that's just a little overview.
Well, thank you guys for kind of going through that a little bit. But what I realize is that MST can be about sexual assault or sexual harassment, which I learned something about a week or two ago. But when you go back to that time that it was happening, did you know that's exactly what was happening? And if you did, were you going to report it or did you have to, did you even know that's what was going on? Christine.
So, kind of like what I already said, no, I didn't. In my marriage, I knew that I was being sexually assaulted and abused. Prior to that, the incidents, I did not know that I was being sexually assaulted. Because I guess I was so young. So I just didn't really know relationships yet. And I mean, I kind of felt left behind when I tried to reach out to those individuals and talk to them after the incident because there was no interaction.
I think a lot of times too, because I was in a physically abusive relationship with another military member, and sometimes you're just trying to make it through the day, that it never even occurred to me to report this person, not even once, because you're just trying to, don't make him mad, don't say anything, don't do anything, don't dress any, all of that. But they were all very controlling factors. So I totally understand where you're coming from, Christine. Jamie, what about you?
It's so crazy because, you know, we started off dating, and for a couple of months, it was really good. And he isolated me. We moved in together, and we moved far away from everybody. And I had came from a traumatic home life already, so I really didn't know. I just didn't know. I knew that I was not happy after. I mean, it didn't take long, but I think like within 6 months, someone can groom you mentally, whether they know they're doing it or not. And that's what happened, and I drank to deal with it. And he provided alcohol, and it was okay for me to drink as much as I wanted. So that also helped keep me in as long as I was in. I started getting in trouble for my drinking, in the military. And so when the woman or the sergeant approached me about my drinking, I had actually taken an EEO class, and that was 40 hours. So I was learning about all this stuff. And she had approached me about my drinking, and I said, the real problem is not like there's reasons for this, and it's because of this person and this relationship. It's abusive. And she got really angry. It was she just kept focusing on my drinking. And yes, I did have to get help for that later, because once you cross that line, then that's another problem. So it created all these other problems, but it was never addressed because, he just is really a charmer. I mean, such a charmer, and good at his job. And, he's still in. So it was a long road. I did not think I would get out of it. And honestly, me being deployed helped me to get out of it. So I'm grateful for that.
Absolutely. Tiffany, this one is, I'm going to start with you in this question. And when you go back to that time, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently, if anything?
That's a tough one. It's a tough one because I was thinking, even as the others were answering your previous question, if I can maybe backtrack and kind of answer that one and lead into this one.
Sure.
For me, I experienced two different things. The one that I mentioned at the end of my career, that I knew something was happening that I did not desire. And I knew that reporting it could be an option. That's what I wrestled with. Now, when I was a private just entering into the military, I lived in the barracks, and the supply sergeant who has the keys to all the barracks, because that was just part of the role that he filled in the military. We had gone to lunch one time, and he was a married person making a pass at me, and then threw out there, I could come into your room at any point in time I want to, because I have keys to all the barracks. Now that I did not know that it was a sexual assault I didn't even know it was an equal opportunity complaint or anything for that nature, but I did live in fear of wondering if he was ever going to enter my room. So I was clueless with that. The second one, I knew what was going on. I just feared reporting it because I was wrestling and going back and forth with the fact of, because I had had a previous relationship with this guy, questioning myself, did I ask for this to happen? Did I want this to happen? And I didn't have an answer. So I think if I would have done anything differently, I would have reported it the day of or the next day. I would not have waited to report it. But the day of my incident, I took 3 showers. I washed my clothes twice, washed my sheets. And even after all that, before getting into the bed, I still did not know if my sheets were clean or if I needed to take another shower. So I think the bottom line to answer that question is, when it happened, I should have reported it right away because that would have had some DNA evidence. But I ended up destroying DNA evidence because I waited.
Yeah, well, you're reacting too. You're just trying to get it away from you, every part of it. And they always say that hindsight is 20/20, which really sucks, when you look back on it. But do you guys know now if there's a standing operating procedure, when something like that happens, do you call the military police or is there someone, and I'm hoping that it's different now, but I don't think it is. So do you know if there's a standard operating procedure now for something like that, or is it just, business as usual?
Well, I can tell you that my incident happened just 4 years ago. So my incident was not too much back in the past. I would say 4 years is probably recent when you look at the military as a whole. And the issue that I personally ran into is that while I was still a reservist, 1, I was not on duty, and 2, I was not on a military installation. So contacting a military police was not going to happen,
right?
Or do me any good. I ended up reporting my incident by going to the VA and going to the emergency room and sharing what happened with a good friend of mine that I went to church with, who happened to be a nurse in the emergency room. And because I did that, she did her job by letting the VA police know. When they came in, because it didn't happen on VA property, they contacted the local police where it did happen and took my report there. So my situation makes that a little bit unique as far as what any kind of SOP would or would not cover as it relates to the military.
Right. If there isn't one, Christine, do you think there should be something specific just to MST?
If you consider because I also did EEO and sexual assault response coordinator. Technically, there is an SOP that you create as a sexual assault response coordinator. Now, this is while on active duty. I don't know if it's the same for reserve or guard. Yes, there is an SOP, like a chain of command type order, not necessarily chain of command that your chain of command, but there is a list and order in which you're supposed to inform. And like, if you're the victim, you can tell 2 different types of people. There's the people that will keep it private and it won't have an investigation, which results in no action being done to that person that caused that assault. And then there is a process where it's an open investigation and everybody gets notified, which technically it should stay in that chain reaction, where all of the proper people are notified and it's handled, and that assault person is taken care of. Whether that's processed with every chain of command, I can't say, because just like the others mentioned, there was, like for me, there was fear of okay, well, what's going to happen to me if I say anything? And at the time that I was married, like later I found out that his chain of command didn't even know we were married. So I mean,
Wow.
it was just crazy. So
That
there's
is
so many
crazy.
different aspects to everything.
And I know it's different. I think when you're in a relationship and it's happening, you can have no friends. You can't speak to your family. They're looking at you. You know, I mean, I dated a guy that, you know, I went to the commissary on base and he said, "What took you so long? It shouldn't take you 20 minutes to go to the commissary." And I'm like, "What is wrong with you?" You know, but, you know, when it's someone you don't know, and Tiffany, I'm going to ask you to answer this question too, is that, you know, do you think this person took advantage of you, the situation, or both?
I would say he definitely took advantage of the situation. Even though he and I were in a previous relationship, he was currently married to somebody else. So he knew what he was doing. You know, and I think for me, I trusted him because we went from knowing each other professionally to personally to an intimate relationship. But because he was now married to another person, we still maintained contact with each other. I feel like what he did was betray the trust that we had between each other. He took advantage of the fact that I trusted him to not do anything. So if nothing else, I feel like what he did do was betray that trust and betray that bond that we had, to the point to where he had asked me the next day by way of a text message, "I hope this doesn't ruin our friendship." And to get a text message like that after he did what he did to me, let me know, okay, that's the icing on the cake. No, you're not going to get away with this.
Wow. It's just phenomenal to me that, not even phenomenal, that's the wrong word. It's just when people take advantage in such a way. You know, there are times in my life when my gut instinct was shouting at me, no, don't do that. Don't, you know, and you're like, oh, it's okay. And then you do it and you think, damn it. If I had just paid attention to that, you know, that maybe, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. You know, sometimes, you know, it does turn out to be okay. But, you know, when your gut instinct is talking to you, and I think women need to tap into that more, but sometimes you don't have time to think about that at all. Do you think that the incidents that happened to you guys, do you think it changed you as a person or as a woman?
Well, if I may, can I just add something else to what you were saying?
Sure.
You said that it's important for women to tap into that gut instinct, and that is correct. I know for me, the asking those why questions, though, so many of them happened after the event. And that took me to a dangerous place because I started questioning, why didn't I see this red flag? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Why did I allow this? Why did that happen? And it took me to a place of where I was bearing the full responsibility of what happened, when what happened was, the onus of what happened was on the perpetrator, not me as the victim at the time.
But you're the one that's suffering.
Correct. But I just wanted to clarify that yes, we do need to go with our gut. However, when an incident like that happens, that's not gut, that's fight or flight. And
Right.
when we start questioning, questioning, why didn't I do this, or why did I allow that? Then we go down the slippery slope that just is not healthy.
Absolutely. And that's why I said sometimes you don't have time to even think about that. Something's happening and you don't even have the time to react. You're in that fight or flight, and you're just trying to survive, in that incident. And so, Jamie, what kinds of mental or physical things happened because of what happened to you?
So, for me, I feel like it was a predatory thing where I was groomed and isolated, and then he got me financially dependent on him. And so every day it was like a step towards me being dependent on him and not having friends, speaking to my family. So the longer I was with him, the harder it was to leave. And we were in the same unit. So I was so
you had to see him twice at work at home.
And there were some incidences where two other soldiers witnessed, abuse. And, it's just crazy how we can judge a situation and turn the other cheek, especially if there's alcohol involved, which happens a lot, especially with service members. But I'm sorry, what was your question again?
What kinds of effects of this because sometimes when you go through this, there's lack of self-esteem. There's, Tiffany had talked about, the questioning yourself, not trusting that gut instinct anymore, or even if you have one, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. When you had asked, would I have changed anything? And that's something I really processed in MST treatment, and PTSD treatment, because I would think that, but I don't, because I could not change. I did the best that I could do in the moment, and I was just surviving, and I wanted to be loved. And when someone isolates you and tells you that they're the only ones that love you, and as a human being, everybody needs love. When I got out of the military is when it really started to affect me. It started with drinking, was just, it was daily. I drank daily. I managed to keep a great job for about 5 years. But then, it's almost like I couldn't drink enough. I never slept, nightmares. And, I didn't understand that it was because of trauma. I knew I had deployed, but I thought maybe it was because of that, and that I was diagnosed with PTSD. But, even at the VA, it's like, oh, you have this, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll deal with it. Like, I don't know. It's just so weird how, unless you have the right person at the right time, that can guide you. Like, it was really like a journey, a lonely journey. But, and I still have, like, PTSD never goes away, but, treatment has helped me so much. And I have healed a lot of that stuff, and it's taken some time.
It does take time. It's not something that happens overnight. It's like building a house. You don't just pour water on it and it pops up. You have to kind of work through it. Christine, what about you?
If you can go back, if that was possible to go back and change the way that things happened, just like Tiffany had mentioned, you can't think about what ifs and all that kind of stuff. But if I could, and you had those processes and abilities, I would change the location on where I would go on after, going out to the club, because a lot of the incidents happened going out to the club, or because you were young, and when you're young, you want to party, and
you want to have fun,
able to drink, and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And so I would change that. And I would make friends with someone that would be my battle buddy and make sure that I was home safely and they were home safely. And then from effects after, I have PTSD. I also have severe anxiety. And recently I've figured out that my anxiety comes from not speaking up and not being able to say what happened or what needs to happen for that fear effect. And I have been progressing greatly because I noticed that when I was in my relationship, it was really big. I would try and talk to a friend or who I thought was a friend through a mutual couple that we had as friends. And that friend would go back and tell her significant other about what I shared, and then it would get back to him, and then he would come to me and physically or emotionally or sexually abuse me. And so that added to that anxiety, and I was having panic attacks. Like, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know they were panic attacks. I didn't know it was anxiety. I just knew I had open heart surgery when I was 4 years old, and here I am having chest pains and not being able to breathe. So I thought all of this was related to that. While internally, I also knew that every time I said something to anybody, I felt like that it would get back to him and he would do something in effect to me. In a way, I wasn't necessarily secluded, like Jamie being a distance away, but I was secluded internally, where me as an outgoing person, I no longer felt like I had that outgoing ability to talk to anybody about anything. And that was part of why I didn't report him, and didn't tell on him, which you say it like that. It's like, oh, tattletale, but it's reporting, and that's important for not just your health, and that's something that I wish I would have changed too. I wish I would have acknowledged that anxiety and that fear and known that was just that. It was just fear. And I could step out of that fear and say something like I should have said something.
Right.
And because he's still in the military too.
Yeah. And I think sometimes we do a lot of self-blame, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know. Like, going through these relationships, I knew something was wrong and I just didn't know how to change it. The problem with, being in a relationship that mentally, physically, sexually abusive is the leaving part. As long as you're doing what they want to do, what they want you to do, you're fine. It's when you try to leave that it can escalate, which is what happened to me. And it just got to a point where I said, this is enough. I was a single parent. I'm like, what am I doing? And so I had to get out of that relationship. But I know that Tiffany and I were in a clubhouse room, and Tiffany had a question, or she had posed a question about going to the VA. Do you remember that question, Tiffany, about being treated for MST, but they couldn't connect it somehow? They had to they could treat the PTSD, but not the MST, or one was related to the other. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
I think the somebody had made a statement about filing a VA service connection to their MST. And the issue is MST is not an actual diagnosis. Meaning, if you look in DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health Issues, you will not find military sexual trauma. However, there are things that stem from a military sexual trauma like PTSD, anxiety, depression. Those are mental health issues, and those are found in the DSM-5. So when you file a claim with the VA, you can file saying, I have PTSD, anxiety, depression, whatever the case may be, and it be due to that sexual assault that happened. And so what they call those PTSD, anxiety, depression, they're called secondary events, meaning that those things, you now have those things because of an event that happened, being the MST. And so that's a piece that I think many people, they go and they file a claim with the VA, and the perpetrator could have been court-martialed out in the military, maximum punishment, whatever the case may be. And then the person who tried to file a claim with the VA gets upset and worked up and frustrated, saying, I don't get it. This really happened to me. Why are they saying that why are they denying me that service connection?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're not denying that it happened. They're not denying that it impacted you. It's just that an MST is not a diagnosis, but those other things are. So we end up filing it the wrong way. So that was kind of the gist of what that conversation was.
That was very interesting. Because I had no idea about that. But one last question is, if you could speak to a young woman who is in the military, about to go in the military, what one piece of advice would you give her concerning safety, as far as her safety from MST, or, not saying she can prevent it, but what kind of advice would you give her? Anybody can go.
Well, since everybody's jumping in, I will go with that. I would say a couple things. One, like what was mentioned already, go with your gut. If you don't feel comfortable in a particular situation for whatever reason, go with your gut and find a way to remove yourself from that particular situation. Regroup and go on about your day, or whatever the case may be. The second thing that I would say is, if you find yourself in a situation where something does occur, some sort of sexual assault, domestic violence, whatever the case may be, report it. The fear of retaliation is a big thing that many people experience, but that should not deter you from filing a report. Because what you find yourself then dealing with is not only the event that happened, but now you're dealing with the fear of what might happen if you say anything to anybody. So I would say report it, and get the help that you need. And I will say that there are resources out there to help. One of the biggest ones that, or there's two of them that a lot of people may have heard about, but may or may not have heard about. One is the Veterans Crisis Line, and that's 1-800-273-8255. That's a resource where you can contact the VA to get some help. And then there's also the Safe Helpline, and that number is 877-995-5247. So even if you're in that place of ambivalence, of not being sure whether or not you should report it, those are two confidential phone numbers that you can call and at least kind of get it out there and talk to somebody that can help you navigate what's next for you.
For me, I agree with everything that Tiffany said. Report it. But I know that a lot of women have difficulty hearing that. So what I want to say is there are ways that you can report it, that you can still get the care you need. Some of those options were what Tiffany just said, the Veteran Crisis Line and the Safety Helpline. You can also call lines that are not military related that have military veteran assistance. So like 211 is a national hotline. And I also created my nonprofit to help women veterans who have gone through this type of scenario. And it's womenforher.org, and it's all of the resources you can think of for any kind of event on there. And if there's something on there and you think it can help someone else, please send me a message, because I'll add it on there. And it's not just for, it may seem like it's just for civilian numbers, but all of those numbers, those crisis lines, even the ones that Tiffany mentioned, say the Veteran Crisis Line, and you're not a veteran and you call, they can give you numbers to non-veteran crisis lines. And the non-crisis veteran crisis lines can give you contacts or people there at those locations to help you. Reporting it is so important because it helps you have peace of mind, knowing that you did the right thing. And I don't want you to look at yourself as a victim. I want you to look at yourself as a hero, because you're taking that step to heal. You are doing the right thing by removing yourself from that situation. And it took me a while to realize, because I used to ask after everything, why me? Why me? Why not? Like, now that one question you asked, Kat, am I better for it now after my situation? Yes, I'm better for it because I can help other people not go through it. I'm better for it because I'm stronger from it. I am better for it because I am who I am, and I've got my power back. Use your gut. Like, that is so important. And Tiffany hit on it, like nail on the head. Use your gut, because yes, you may think, like for me, my situation, I felt like I was in love. I was so happy. That's what I was telling myself. That's what I said. Oh, my heart feels so happy with him or in this situation. But I wasn't happy. And my gut knew the whole time. My gut knew that I needed to leave. And then the final straw was like, he punched me. He punched me in my stomach, and I fell over, and I was crying on the floor, and he stood over me and he said, "Get up. I didn't hit you that hard." That was the last straw. Like, and it's sad that it took that long after the mental abuse, the sexual abuse, the other physical abuse that happened. It took to that point for me, and I wish it didn't, but I'm glad that it did, because at that point I said, I'm done. I'm leaving. The next day he acted like nothing happened, and he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, how are you doing today?" He saw me walking on the sidewalk to go get chow. And I was like, "What are you talking about? Get away from me. I don't want to talk to you. I submitted for a divorce. We're done. Don't talk to me anymore. We're done. And as soon as I get the paperwork, I'll send it to you so you can file it with your chain of command." And that's actually when I found out that not only had he done all that abuse and everything to me, but he cheated on me, got the girl pregnant while we were still married. And like, I was just like, bye, good riddance. So use your gut, file a report. Do not be afraid. And another option that I just recently discovered, go to your chaplain. If you feel like you can't talk to your chain of command, you can't talk to that psychologist, go to the chaplain. The chaplain can't say anything. So they will be there to protect you and give you that advice that you need in that moment. So that's my peace of mind, and I hope you use it.
I love that. I just think that, it's about getting your power back. Someone's trying to take it or even make you think that they've taken it, but then you get it back and you realize that you can help others because of what happened, and so you turn it around, you flip it, and you say, look, this happened to me, but I can help other people because of what happened, Jamie, go ahead, Tiffany.
Sorry. One thing that I meant to mention as well, for those who are in the military still, you can file a report, because I think one statistic that I saw from 2018 said that the fear of reprisal is what impacted about 64% of the people who did not report it because they were afraid of what was going to happen. In the reporting process, you can file a report as restricted or unrestricted. And that's really important to know, because with restricted, I can file a complaint, but it stays between myself and the person that I reported it to. Unrestricted means that an investigation is going to happen. So if I decide to file that report and say I want it to be restricted, at least I filed it within the appropriate time period. So if I do later on decide to pursue an unrestricted report, at least I've gotten that part out of the way. So I think that's important for people to know.
Absolutely. I just, I think for me is, a lot of times, you think, oh, we're wearing the same uniform and we're all in the military and we're all friends and we can all, and no. So my piece of advice would be, when you are going out, if you're going to a club, if you're going to a party in a dorm, have a battle buddy, somebody that says, where is she? Let me go find her. Okay. Someone that's got your back. Okay. Someone who has your back. And as some guy says, hey, you want to come to the room? You say, yeah, can my battle buddy come? And not in the way that person thinks either,
100% agree.
Oh, Lord.
And they're going to go, oh, okay, maybe not, but protect yourself at all. If that person likes you, they're going to be like, yeah, bring your battle buddy. It's cool. We'll just chill. Okay. So just protect yourself. You've heard several times, all of these women on the panel saying, trust your gut. Okay. That's your first indication. Having a battle buddy.
Can I share something?
There. And Jamie, did you want to jump into this conversation, a little piece of advice?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to share something that's I think is important, is not to live in fear. And if you do report it, I don't know. I would say to report it, but even with like my incident, I don't want to say I wish I would have, but he came back even after I got out of the military several times. I think that with going through these different treatment programs, Road Home is a great one that's free for veterans with PTSD, and it does help men and women, and it does help them. They have an MST program. It's great, all inclusive. And what I found is that even with that fear of reprisal, there are people, even in my incident, I went to that one person and I stopped there. But if I would have kept going above her, I really believe that I would have gotten help. So don't just stop with one person. If that person above you is not going to help you, go above them. That is where you break that chain of command.
There's also, I downloaded an app called Beyond MST that's from the VA. And I wanted to download it only because I wanted to see how intuitive it was, how it's a really nice app. I mean, it goes through, it's not about the MST itself. It's about what you can do to get beyond it, the types of things that are available to you. It's available for Android and iPhone. I would just suggest take a look at it and see what you think about it. Just say thank you to our panel, Jamie, Christine, Tiffany. I think this is an ongoing conversation and something that needs to be talked about. I want this to be, eventually be one of those things that, is non-existent. That's a big wish for me. But, a wish is a wish. It could happen, and if we put things in place. Any last words, ladies, before we go?
Thank you for having us and bringing not just awareness, but the ability for these individuals, anybody that listens, not just women, but anybody that listens, most importantly women, because we're here because women, and bringing that knowledge for them to get the help.
Yeah, it's important. It was important for me for the audience to hear women who've been through it and realize that there's life afterwards, and they don't have to be, that there's help, that there's things that they can do to get their power back. Tiffany, any last words? I know she does.
Oh, you're fired. I'm hurt. Stab me in the heart. Well, yes, I do, because this is it's an important topic to me. Just because I went through it. Yes, I agree that experiencing an MST is hard. It is difficult. And if you go forward in filing a report, I am not going to lie, it's a difficult process because you are having to recall an incident that was obviously less than desirable. But I am now speaking from the other side of it, on the other side of the tunnel. And it is well worth it to report it because I don't know if I was the only person that this person did it to. And I will probably never know. But if I can help one person by reporting what happened to me, going through that difficult process of reporting it and then getting the help that I need is well worth it. And now also on this side of it, I feel like I am more empathetic to somebody who has gone through something similar.
Absolutely. You don't know what someone's been through until you're in their shoes, and then you go, oh, okay, and it's hard. Jamie, any last words for our audience before we go?
Thank you so much. I love talking about this, and I never thought that I'd be able to do that. So there is help out there, even if you don't report it or you realize that it's 20 years later. There is definitely help and always healing available. It's definitely there. I have found from my experience that suppressing it only makes it worse. And, it's possible. Healing is possible. And there were great things about my military experience I'm extremely proud of.
Well, thank you, ladies, for being on this panel and talking about this. Christine and Tiffany, you were the first two people that I thought about when I wanted to do this. And then a mutual friend introduced me to Jamie, and you guys have been crucial to this conversation. So I just want to say a huge thanks to you guys. And, reach out, guys. If anyone's going through something, there's help available. So I want to thank my audience for listening in. Please be safe, take care of each other, and until next time.